Alright, so this is just a rack of St. Louis style ribs. Got these from my local club store. They're nothing special. They actually didn't require much trimming. There was no loin back on them or anything. So I've seasoned them with just some rubs that I like, and I'm going to put in my meat hooks. Two booms there. And they give it some extra security. Take a second hook, wrap it on that, and let's go there. Alright. So these have been sitting here a few minutes so that seasoning can work in. I don't let them sit overnight because you don't want the ribs to brine or get cured with the salt and sugars in those rubs. So let's get outside, start a fire, and we'll talk about the cooker and how we're going to cook these ribs. You can use whatever you want to start it. I like fire, so I just use my torch. Alright, so we get that lit. We'll let this do its thing in the charcoal chimney and come up to temperature. So while this is heating up, I'm going to talk about why I picked this particular pit barrel. So I have a gas grill, which is behind the camera. That does good for most things, like, you know, just regular grilling, hot dogs, hamburgers, stuff like that. So I wanted a smoker, and a couple of years ago I got an electric smoker. It's a little cabinet one. It was like $200 a Tractor Supply, and to its credit, it did okay. You never got a great bark, and the racks were small. So if you had a rack of ribs, you had to jam them in there sideways or cut them in half, and it took a lot longer than it should. It just didn't have the heat density to like a real fire or something like that. And I looked at pellet grills. I looked at Yoder's, Traeger's, all the other brands. I don't want to get locked in proprietary fuel like pellet. Plus, I just don't want to have to plug it in all the time and keep it covered. And I mean, if I forget to cover this, it's a metal barrel. That's what's going to happen. There's no moving parts. Doesn't need electricity. And it's versatile. Inside it's got a grill you can take out, or a grate rather. It's got hanging rods, so you cook a lot of ribs. Even like the best Traeger, you get a couple of racks of ribs, you filled it. This has got rods, so you don't only control the temperature, but you can hang meat. And you know, however many dungarees science are in there, it knows, you know, just through your air control and your exhaust control, which is pretty well calibrated. We're at sea level here, so it comes with instructions on how to set it, which is pretty much shut, the door at the bottom. I mean, right behind you, if there wasn't a house, there'd be the ocean right there. So we're going to put our charcoal basket in the bottom here. Take this out for a second. Pull out this rack. Put our basket in. Alright, so we got our coal. We'll just dump it in the basket. They're right in the center. And we'll get that going. So we're just going to let the cooker come up to temperature. Alright, now that I get the coal in there and the lid on and the rod's in and it's coming up to temperature, I'm going to take some really cool B-roll videos so people can go, oh my god, that's the best barbecue video in the world. So it's been like 10-15 minutes. We got some really cool B-roll video of the barrel that's on fire. So yeah, throw the ribs on. So let's pop your lid off. And, the only thing that wasn't exactly clear when I bought this was that this hook wasn't actually included. They sell another one, like a bottle opener, but I thought I had to buy that. But they actually do include a hook for your meat hooks. And so, let's take off our ribs. And you know what? I'm going to go to this one here. So it's more centered in the fire. All right. Got tongue. Got a couple pieces of mesquite and a piece of hickory because George Washington would have wanted you to do it. Throw that in. I also got some applewood down there too. And we'll close it. Now one pro tip is this tin foil here. It's really large and perfect for making a boat later on when you wrap these ribs. There's nothing wrong with this. It's got some pork juice on it, but it's also going to be recooked. So bring this in. I throw it in the fridge so it doesn't go rancid. But you'll see this tin foil later on. It's also got all the extra rub in there. So when you wrap your ribs, it's not that big a deal. And you're not wasting tin foil, which is like $5 million a roll now. So yeah. See you in a couple hours. And before you click off this video, because this old Tony uploaded, I just want to talk about this tote. This is actually like a pro tip. If I was a pro, but not. So I don't know. Anyway, racks and wood chunks and all this grill barbecue paraphernalia. It tends to wander around and get lost. Then next time you go to do a cook, you're wondering where everything is or how much wood do you actually have. So keep everything in this little tote bin. I didn't invent tote bins, but I like them. It's kind of nice in the tote bin because with the lid, if it goes to rain, like it always does when I want to have fun, put the lid on. It doesn't get wet. So works pretty good. And it's a small one, but keep all your racks in there. This is the stock rack. The other one, Pit Barrel sells, has a little trap door. So if you want to cook ribs in a chicken, or maybe deceive your enemies and trap them inside your smoker, you can. Works for that. So like I said, I throw everything in there and clip the lid on, and because I got my smoked wood in there now, I don't really need this the rest of the day, so I'll put it back in the shed. Just a little pro tip I found after using this thing. And like I said, you know, I liked this particular cooker because you can get any charcoal anywhere. I use lump charcoal, but you know, every grocery store and gas station has charcoal. Not every store, gas station, especially if you're halfway through a cook and realize you're low in fuel, has pellets. You know, they have their place, but it's not here. So I don't want electricity. I'm going to plug this thing in. This is really a set it and forget it. Because of these rods and that single opening down there and the nice heavy lid, guys that went to like barbecueology university figured out like that's the perfect amount of air that has to escape, and that's the perfect amount of air that has to go in to maintain the temperature. And I think people get worked up about temperature too much. I mean, the fire knows how hot to be. Meat doesn't really care, you know. And they figured out like this is just that perfect Goldilocks range for smoking. And I've never done any real long cooks like brisket, but I've cooked some longer stuff, and it's been fine. The fire lasts. I mean, I've come out here at night after a cook, and the fire is still burning almost 8 hours later. So Worst comes to worst, if you need more fire for longer cooks, just put more coal on. It's kind of simple. So, also get some horseshoes. That's kind of cool. You know, gallop down the road. But yeah, no, this is a pretty solid unit. It's real thick steel. It's not the Chinesium that a lot of Weber kettles and other off-market, off-brand grills are. It's made in the U.S. and also, it's a veteran-owned company, and that was one of the things that really swayed me to it was their support of our military and also law enforcement and first responders. They also offer a discount for military and first responders, so that was a big thing for me. So yeah, no, it's a nice unit. So we'll be back in a couple hours and wrap up these ribs, get them tender, and have lunch. All right, so we're a couple hours later here, and I'm gonna check on the ribs. This little pan has my barbecue sauce in it. Um, it's just Stubbs. It's what I prefer. I mean, you do whatever you want, but I always like to preheat my sauce, not boil it, but warm it up a little bit. That way when you wrap your ribs, you're not killing the temperature in there. Um, so if you notice, I don't have any meat thermometers out here. A lot of people don't know this, but ribs actually have built-in thermometers. They're like smart ribs. So pop off our lid here. Take our hook, and yeah, these are the latest in rib technology. They got these little built-in thermometers right there. You see that pullback? That beautiful bark. So we're gonna lay it on our pan here. That's a great thing on them rods. Just lay that on there. I'm gonna get on my heat-resistant gloves. Take out those meat hooks because this has been on a couple hours now. It's got all the smoke flavor you're gonna get out of the cook. So now we just really want the heat to render that intermuscular fat. Pop off our hooks. And we'll set those aside until we get to wash them for the next month and a half. All right. We're just going to take some of that sauce, slather it on. A bit of moisture for these. You're not going to ruin that bark. Some guys don't like adding sauce. Some do. I like the flavor of this particular sauce, so get it on there. Hold them up in this little boat. It's going to make a little boat of happiness here. Set that aside. Just going to put out our rod. Like I said, we're not hanging anymore. You can if you want, rehang them. But put this little rack in here and I'm gonna let that go another couple hours. Make sure you reinsert your rod. That controls the temperature. Put gloves off. Put our lid back on and let it do its thing. And the entire time, a couple hours, this was cooking. I only came out once and actually checked on them. Um, this is pretty much set it and forget it. Like they always say, with any barbecue or anything, even if you're baking, if you're looking, you ain't cooking. Another thing I want to talk about is I wasn't paid to make this video. I'm going to insert a picture of my credit card bill here. I actually bought this with my own money. This isn't like a paid shill video. It's just something I think is kind of cool. So anyway, we'll be back in a little bit. Put a glaze on these ribs. We'll have some lunch. As I got closer to the end of the rendering, I went into the freezer and got a piece of chorizo sausage that I had laying around from another recipe. Cut it up and made a quick dirty rice as a side for this lunch. I went back out to the pit, opened it up and checked on the ribs. Found they were just how I like them. Nice pullback, super tender. Brought them inside. Man, I tell you what, you didn't even need a fork for these things. They were so tender, they just fell off the bone. You know, guys, thanks for watching and have a great day.